Last week, I talked to you about the entitlement of Gen Z. This week, I want to explain why we're 100% to blame for it and why we need to toughen up and flip the script. To put it bluntly, I believe that we, the Gen Xers, are a generation of cowards, and we are ruining the next generations through our fear. Let me explain what I mean. Every generation of 20-year-olds is angry. They're supposed to be. It's kind of funny actually. As Amor Tolls wrote in the brilliant A Gentleman in Moscow, if you haven't read it, read it. A new generation owes a measure of thanks to every member of the previous generation. Our elders planted fields and fought in wars. They advanced the arts and sciences and generally made sacrifices on our behalf. Now this perspective reminds us that while each new generation pushes for progress, it also stands on the shoulders of those before it. And this was written about the 1920s. If you look at pictures of people in their 20s, you will see them complaining about the issues of the day. They all think they're doing what their parents failed to do. They all think that they are special in their anger. They're really not.
Harsh but fair.
Although some do get extra in the world. Pick one you care about, put it in your head. Right now, the way things are is the accepted norm. So let's call it a 3 out of 10. Now that's not good enough. I understand that. And that's what the 20-year-olds are furious about. They protest, they march, they even throw and break things. They're demanding that this 3 becomes a 9 or 10, and they want it now. A word that always sounds better with a Belfast accent. No.
This is going to sound really weird.
No.
Stunning.
So far, this is true for every generation. In the past, they demanded a 10. The older generation, who, by the way, were themselves angry mobs 10 or 20 years before, they push back. Sure, there are outliers, but this is for the most part true, right? And we've all heard the line.
If you're not a rebel at the age of 20, you got no heart. But if you haven't turned established by 30, you got no brain.
I'd paraphrase it to make it less political and more societal. If you do not have your foot on the accelerator of progress by 20, you have no heart. If you do not have your hand on the brakes by 40 though, you have no brain.
You just blew my mind.
It's the 20-year-old's job to drive progress, and it's the 40 or 50-year-old's job to sit in the passenger seat making sure the car doesn't drive off a cliff. Now we're just terrified passengers, too scared to touch the wheel. This relationship, it's supposed to ensure that we move forward, but at the right speed that doesn't kill us. So young guns pushed and old dogs pushed back, but just enough. They didn't stop the march of progress, they just managed the speed of the advance. So we didn't get to a 10, but we landed in a 5 or a 6, and you know what? That's exactly where we needed to be for now. This is the natural order of things. The angry 20-year-olds failed to get the 10 they wanted, but they did move the needle. They won, even if they didn't think they did. We have to remember Aristotle's golden mean. Virtue can be found between two extremes, lying in the mean. A 5 is the victory condition. It should go without saying that there are certainly some issues in society that need to be fixed quicker than others. That's where the break management will come in. Remember, at 20 years old, your brain isn't even fully formed yet, and you have a very radicalized, idealized version of reality that can only be held by someone with basically no real responsibility yet. And I don't say that to be disparaging to them. It's just the reality of the situation. If we let them have their way, and we have, they will break things through a lethal combination of eagerness and inexperience. And they have. And no judgment on them. They were doing their job. We didn't do ours. This is where we have failed. This is where we are failing.
Unacceptable.
We're the first generation of old dogs that have been beaten into submission by the young Turks. Not because of who they are, but because of the weapon they wield, social media. We aren't debating anymore. We're self-censoring, terrified of being digitally burned at the stake. We're afraid to push back because pushing back would make us seem like alt-right conservatives. We're not conservatives, we're just old, and usually wise. If you're 20 and you disagree with me today, hey, bookmark this video to watch when you're 50. I guarantee that you will feel the current generation is pushing too hard and changing too much. I digress though. Let me explain what I mean about cowardice. Right, so a few years ago, I posted on LinkedIn about a request made by an organization I was part of for presentation specialists and company owners. A very, very niche group of industry presenters, right, or presentation business owners. One of the members requested in the Slack channel that we create a custom channel in that industry group that was for anybody that wasn't simultaneously straight, white, and male. Right? That was the trait. We want a group that wasn't for anybody that isn't simultaneously straight, white, and male. Can we have a channel for them? As if, me being those three things is terrible. By the way, the language they used was LGBTQ+, POC, and women. So that amounts to the same thing. I mean, it's absurd, right? There's no defensible logic to this. This isn't inclusion, this is unclusion. Now, if you were to look at the comments versus the likes on the post, you'd think I was the one who was absurd. You see, I was ratioed badly. What that means is that the ratio of comments, which hate, were completely over the ratio of likes. But the truth was not quite so simple, and I'll explain why. All voices of dissent were public, and all voices of agreement were private, on email or WhatsApp. Messages like this. Let me read you one. Hey Rich, I just saw your post on LinkedIn. I don't want to get involved, but just wanted you to know that I fully agree with you. The lunatics are running the asylum. Good luck with it. Good luck with it all, and thanks for bringing this up. Thanks you for nothing. We're all Winston living in 1984, raging at Emmanuel Goldstein. And if that reference seems strange to you, ask your AI or pick up a book. Except that we're not Winston, and this is not fiction. We're the prevailing generation of breakholders, and we're not doing our job. And we need to fix that. We need to find our voices and push back. The result of us not doing that is that we allow the pendulum to swing too far to the extreme. And when this happens, it makes the ground fertile for an extreme response. Now, I'm not political at all. And I don't love or hate Trump enough for anyone, really. But when one extreme is left unchecked, the overcorrection can be just as bad. When you push too hard in one direction, you make it the backlash inevitable. If you hate him, you only have yourself to blame. You push too far. And if you love him, where were you 3 years ago? Why didn't you speak up then?
Yeah, I had a thing that day.
Our generation, Gen X, needs to find our voices again. We need to do our jobs, which is to allow progress to happen at a manageable pace. And it will be a battle. On one side is a generation that doesn't want any change at all, and on the other is a generation that wants to leave no stone unturned. Our job is, as it always has been, to manage that tension. Now, I think we've done a fairly bad job so far, but it's not too late. The comedians have found their courage again, and so should we. But we need to remember that the goal is progress. But that progress is between two extremes, lying in the mean. Lead loud.